that while his son Maruf Hussain, after being shot by police, was being taken to the hospital, a policeman poked the wounded area of his son with the rifle butt. PW23 Amena Akhtar reported that while Home Minister Asadjaman Kamal and IGP Chaudhry Abdullah Mamun were passing across the Asrabari, one police officer was showing them a video of their attack on protesters and said, "Guli kori ekta, more ekta, ahuto hoy ekta, ektai jay, bakita jay." It transpires from the testimony of PW27, Dr. Mashouk Ahmed, that Chhatralik activists stopped ambulance carrying protesting wounded near Shahidullah Hall of Dhaka University. They also checked the patient identity, asked the doctors not to treat the wounded protesters and also not to be so serious in their treatment. He further said 5 doctors were transferred elsewhere due to rendering treatment to protesters with bullet injuries. This witness also stated that the direction of the gunshot wounds of the patients treated on 19, 20, 21 July and 4-5 August in Dhaka Medical College Hospital was from the top to the bottom. It meant that the gunshot was done from above, which obviously implies helicopter. It appears from the evidence of PW47 Nahid Islam reports that bullets were fired from helicopter and that many false cases were filed against the protesters and also that the activists of Awam League, Jubilees and Chhatralik prevented the treatment and burial of protesters. Further, some of the protesters were forcibly disappeared and many dead bodies of the protesters were concealed. He himself and some other student leaders were abducted. PW48 Ali Ahsan Junaid stated that on 15 July 2024, Chhatralik activists brutally attacked and injured the Dhaka University students, hindered going to the hospital and tortured them in the hospital. He further said that the protesters were fired from the helicopter. We find from the evidence of PW54, MD Alamgir, investigating officer, that the protester named Ashabul Yamin was thrown down from the APC by the police. Summing up by the learned Chief Prosecutor. The learned Chief Prosecutor advanced argument on conclusion of the testimonies of the prosecution witnesses. He submitted that the instant case is an unprecedented and unexceptional one in the history of this subcontinent. After achieving independence in 1971, the people of the country had a great expectation and believed that all sorts of suffering, poverty, tyranny, and high-handedness of the government and the mighty quarters would come to an end, and people would enjoy liberty, happiness, and all fundamental rights. But all these have been doomed to ashes. The learned prosecutor dubbed the ruling party Awami League as fascist from the very inception of independent Bangladesh. The Awami League government concentrated to perpetuate its power by way of exploitation, torture, killing, abduction, denial of democracy and fundamental rights of the people, freedom of press and speech, as well as social justice, and thereupon established dictatorship by forming Baksha. The then Awami League government led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman planned in connivance with a neighboring country to weaken and abolish our glorious army and thus form Lokhi Bahini, an armed organized parallel to the army. In the likewise, after coming to the power in 2008, Sheikh Hasina's government committed the same acts like torture, abduction, killing, false prosecution, imprisoning, confinement, and forced the appearances, and also dominated judiciary, restricted the freedom of press and freedom of speech. Sheikh Hasina oppressed the critics, writers, journalists, members of civil societies, lawyers, and judges, and ousted many of them from the country. The then Chief Justice Sheikh Hasina, eminent writer and journalist, as well as historian Mahmudur Rahman, politician and journalist Pinaki Bhattacharya, Shafiq Rahman, Ilyas Hussain, Kanak Sarwar, Mushfiqul Fadl Ansari, Oliullah Numan, Shahid Alam, Jawad Mirjor, Tasneem Khalil, Zulkarnain Shaher, Barrister Abdul Razak.
Statute as well as our law, and particularly the elements as enshrined therein. And the elements of superior command responsibility. In such cases, superior command responsibility is bulkily involved, and that's why we have to have regard to this aspect as well. And we have stated this standard, that is, we compare the standard of this tribunal with the standard of the other international tribunals as well as the International Criminal Court. And we have said about the trial procedure, Part 2, pre-trial proceedings, Part 3, prosecution, story and defense case. We have stated about learned Chief Prosecutor submission on charge, learned State Defense Council's submission on charge, thereupon decision on charge, and then we have given the description of evidences in Part 4. In Part 4, we have also given an account of the testimonies of the prosecution witnesses. In Part 5, we have given the illustration of the evidences, that is the description of the evidences. Used arms and ammunition. We have given an account of the used arms and ammunition. We have given a description. We have discussed about the telephonic conversations of accused Sheikh Hasina with a number of persons from time to time. We have discussed and extracted the reports of daily newspapers concerning the issues of this case, reports of United Nations Human Rights Commission, reports of Odhikar, another Human Rights Commission, reports of Human Rights Watch, and Globe Institute, and so on. We have discussed about the videos of the offences which have been displayed in the tribunal. And we have described the extent of cruelty administered upon the victims who have died and who have been seriously injured and lost their vital organs of the body. And we have talked about seized alamots. We have given account of the murders, number of murders, in accordance with the Gazette notifications published by our government and in accordance with the reports of United Nations Human Rights Commission and other organizations. In this context, I want to say that the exact report of murders or the victims or the sufferers or the injured person or those whose whereabouts could not be traced, this is quite natural. You will understand that since our Liberation War in 1971, still we could not finalize the list of murderers, the list of freedom fighters, list of the war criminals, and others. So there are lists, but it varies. So it's a time limiter. It may vary. Somewhere you find the figure 800, somewhere 1000, somewhere 1400. So substantial amount of the protesters have been killed. This is the we have described the police messages and directions passed from the high-ups to the downwards for doing the needful to control the protesters, curfew orders. Then in part 6, we have described, we have given an account of the learned Chief Prosecutor's arguments, the points of argument, the pertinent points of argument have been described. We have also described the pertinent points of argument raised by the learned State Defense Council. Thereafter, we have given an account of our observations and inference. And finally, we pass the order. So this is all about the judgment. Now we will read out the very pertinent portions of the judgment one by one. At first, our line number 2. He will read out a portion of the judgment, commencing from origin and object of the tribunal, jurisdiction of the tribunal, and he will read out Article 7 of Home Statute, elements of crime against humanity, elements of superior command status, responsibility, and then the charges. Thereafter, learned member 1, he will read out some questions from the discussion of the evidences, the report of the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and then the extent of cruelty administered upon the victims, and thereafter the points of arguments submitted by the learned prosecutor and learned State Defense Council. And finally, I will read out the conclusion and the order. So it will take about 40 minutes. We hope that you will be listening to the deliberations. Thank you very much. Now, the turn of our learned member 2 is reading out, as I have mentioned.
Origin and object of the tribunal. The International Crimes Tribunal has been established under the International Crimes Tribunal Act 1973 to provide for the detention, prosecution, and punishment of the persons for genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes.
The conversations recorded in DVD, CD, and the videos of the occurrences have
So you just mentioned that you want to learn Python. So do not learn Python in manual way in 2025, because learning Python in manual way will take you like 6 months.
the accused are liable for their abstention from taking measures for the prevention of the same or taking any punitive measures against the doers thereof. Being the Prime Minister, accused Sheikh Hasina was the supreme commander of the law enforcing agencies, inclusive of the Home Minister and the Inspector General of Police, and as such, the crimes against humanity in question could not take place without the involvement, express or tacit of them. The learned chief prosecutor added that the movement of the students continued for 36 days, during which, as stated herein before, hundreds of protesting students and common people were killed and thousands were seriously injured, most of whom became permanently handicapped and blind. But accused Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and the other accused and none of the government authorities or the leaders of the ruling party Awami League expressed concern or remorse for such atrocities so far. Accused Sheikh Hasina, instead of expressing remorse or seeking apology for the said crimes, continued to commit further crimes by threatening the present government, the International Crimes Tribunal personnel and the prosecutors, and also the political